Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix at Cinema, the podcast that today is obliged to sing "It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming."
I had a minibus load of students, and I made the mistake of saying, because I got like an auxiliary thing on the radio, I said, well, if you want to put on some music. So, and that was what it was. So all the way to the cricket ground, they were singing, "We're coming home." But you've got to indulge them sometimes. They were having fun.
You have to. And so for those of you who do not know what we're talking about, there is a fair chance that you are not on the continent of Europe. If you do not know what we're talking about, that is because the Euro Championships, which have been going on for the last month, the Euro 2020, held in 2021 for obvious reasons, has reached its final. We have the final, and England are finally made it through to the final or something, and the country is now drunk. Or shall I say the country is surviving, is waking up from a hangover that might last up until Sunday when the final is actually played. So, my name is Tosin. I am the host of Netflix vs. Cinema, and joining me as always on an island of the south coast of England called the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Shaun.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, Shaun, I'm guessing that you watched the match last night. You all 120 nerve-shredding minutes of it.
Yep. Indeed, I did. Why do we put ourselves through it? But yeah, no, I called it right. Actually, I called it right. I said that I think it would go like that, be a bit of a nail biter. So that Denmark would score first, and it would go to extra time, and then we'd nick it. So yeah, I would just wish I'd had a bet on that. I never had a bet. If I had a bet on that, it would have been probably would have been quids in.
Yeah, that is. I had my whole plan. My whole plan was to go play tennis and just to ignore the match and everything like that. And then obviously, what happens is that to play tennis, you need other people to play tennis with. They all abandoned me because of the match. They were all like, "On your own." And then it started raining, so all I had to do is sit down at home, not watch the match, but still feel the tension for something I wasn't even watching. So how about you, Sharon? What did you do while the match was on last night? What was your solitude?
I went to the cinema last night.
Oh.
I went at 7:30 thinking, because I do support England. Obviously, I want England to win, but I find it's just too tense for me when you get to these like quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. I just can't bear it. So what I tend to do is I keep myself busy, and then I'll literally watch the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was planning to do.
So I came home from the cinema and I put the television on and I watched, and it was in extra time, so I just watched the extra time bit.
All right.
But normally I like to know the result rather than have to sit through an hour and a half of just going, no, don't do this again. Because I'm not interested in football at all. But even my interest is piqued when we start progressing up through the ranks. And so when we get to quarterfinal, that's when I sort of go,
It's something. So it has final in the title. Something might happen here.
But then I get too tense. I'm like, oh no, don't get interested just to see them lose.
All right, cool. There's just whatever happens. There's just one more match. There's another. Well, let's put it this way. After 3 hours, three hours on Sunday, we will know what happens. One way or another, we'll know what happens. And the country might be drunk for another year. Or either way, I think the country's going to be drunk for a while. Either way.
Whichever way it goes, there's going to be...
There's going to be a hefty amount of drinking. We might make up for all the money that pubs have lost during the COVID pandemic this weekend. But anyway, let's carry on to films. We are obviously called Netflix vs. Cinema. What we do each week is that we go to the cinema and we see things. We are allowed to do that now again. Yay! And we see things at home. We watch things at home and we rate them out of 5 and we take an average of the scores and see who has won this week. Where has our money been better spent? So, Sharon, you said you went to the cinema last night instead of watching England. What did you go see when you went to the cinema last night?
I went to see Black Widow, the much delayed Marvel film.
All right, cool. Yep. Okay. So you saw Black Widow, and I saw Freaky. I saw Freaky on Tuesday night. And Shaun, in keeping up to your reputation as Mr. Beast Mode on this podcast. What did you see this week at the cinema?
I actually saw Black Widow and I saw Freaky.
Wow! So, look at that. Who would have thunk it? Like, Sean saw everything. And when it goes to stuff at home that we saw this week, what did you guys see?
Well, I saw. I watched. It was on the iPlayer because I happened to be somewhere else, and I didn't really have any streaming platform, so I looked on iPlayer, and I went through to the film section, flicked across, and thought I would watch the black and white The Thing from Another World.
Ooh.
And mighty pleased I was.
Ooh, The Thing from Another World. How about you, Sharon? What did you see?
I saw the latest release on Amazon Prime. I saw The Tomorrow War.
The Tomorrow War.
Which has been advertised quite heavily.
All right, cool. And I saw a film on Amazon Prime called I'm Your Woman, which is one that I think Sean you would like. But I have been wrong before. But no,
But then again, you've been right before. You've been right before as well. So.
Yeah. So okay, usually we try and keep it even for cinema and keep it even for. We'll see how much what we get up with this week, but we'll try and keep it even. But seeing as cinema is dragging its feet and everybody's still running scared from the Fast and Furious 9 and not releasing any new films, we're just gonna go with the three things we have at home this week. But let's kick off straight up. And now let's kick off with Black Widow. Let's go with Black Widow because Black Widow is probably the big thing. It is the big one that is being released, that's going to be out in cinemas this week, that everyone's going to be making a big hoopla about. As Sharon, as you said, it has been much delayed. So just want to tell us a little bit about Black Widow, what is kicking off what is being referred to as Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, you could almost call it the origin story of Black Widow, who is Natasha Romanoff is her name, and she's played by Scarlett Johansson. She's been in a lot of she was an Avenger, and it's been in a lot of the Avengers films where you've got the whole team. And then she was in like Captain America, Civil War, I believe. And so she is one of those periphery characters, and this is her first front and center. So you see basically what made her the Black Widow and a Black Widow. And I didn't know this, but the Black Widows is a collective, a group of women who have been raised basically behind the Iron Curtain, when there was such a thing, by this shadow organization called the Red Room, where they train these young girls. They basically either they're orphans or they basically identify a certain talent amongst them, and they claim them, and then they train them to be undercover agents. So they go into sleeper cells, they go around the world. Some of them are trained as assassins, some of them are trained as basically sort of deep cover agents. So there's a group of these young women primarily called the Black Widows. And Natasha Romanoff was one of those before she broke away and became an Avenger. And it doesn't quite give you that story of how she left the Black Widows. So you see a bit of her story, and then they assume you know the bit in the middle, then it jumps to the period of time between when there was the Civil War going on.
Civil War and then, Infinity War, I believe.
Yes, and bit before we had the whole Thanos goings on. And so, yes, you see that story, and you meet her family. They weren't her birth family. They were a family that she was planted with as a deep cover in America. Her father, who was a super soldier, Russia's only super soldier. Her mother, her fake mother, was a scientist.
Yep.
And she
played
had
by Rachel Weisz.
Played by Rachel Weisz, yes.
The Red Guardian. That was
played by David Harbour, and I believe her other sister, her sister played by Florence Pugh. So obviously, with that's about what we need with plot. I mean, it's a Marvel movie, so after a while, you expect things to blow up and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. So Shaun, we'll take Florence Pugh as a jumping off point because you've already got you love yourself some Florence Pugh.
Yeah. Florence Pugh can't do any wrong for me, I'm afraid. I mean, I think she's brilliant and everything.
Okay, so you both have seen this. So, Shaun, what did you think about this? What did you think about this film? Sharon has given us the ground, and now, Shaun, give us the feels. Give us the emotion.
You really want to know? You really, really want to know?
I do really
this goes down, for me, personally, for the worst film in the whole of the Marvel, I mean, I spoke to my friend about this. He goes, "Oh no, Iron Man 2 was much worse." I said, "No, this is the." He said, "Yeah, it's not that particular." So yeah, for me, this film, Marvel have lost their way, I think, from a personal point of view, because they've gone stupid and they've tried to have funny bits which aren't particularly funny or comedic, I don't think. And as I say, I've got a lot of issues with this. I like the way they related it to the other movies, and you had the bit in there, but then it just got, there's like that thing would not, that there's particularly one sequence where it's like, why would you put that place? It's a bit like for me for Battle of the Planet of the Apes. It's just stupidness, and it's just, no, I can't believe that. I can't believe that. That's just, I know it's fantastic and it looks good, and you've got loads of effects and bangs and whooshes and all that.
Yeah, but Marvel have always been good that even though it's fantastic, even within that world, things are still believable.
Yeah, that's it. And this to me became a bit of a farce, a bit of a parody, if you like. And I didn't find with the bits that were trying to be funny particularly funny. Nothing like Thor Ragnarok, which was absolutely brilliant. This was trying, it had moments. Didn't particularly, wasn't so keen on the Red Guardian. I don't know. To me, this is the worst film of the Marvel series of movies, I'm afraid.
Okay.
So yeah, so
all right.
So so that surprises people, I think.
Oh no! Actually, to be honest with you, Shaun, I was expecting something a little bit like that from you. But Sharon, what do you think?
I have to agree with Shaun. To be honest with you, I got to the point where I was thinking, I don't think this film adds anything to the Marvel canon. I think it's one of those ones, as it's like a side shoot. I think you could quite easily not watch it because I don't think it progressed the actual storyline or the canon. I don't think it progressed. It didn't add anything to it for me. And again, I think I'm not as picky about Shaun but there's some scenes where I'm thinking, I just don't believe this.
Yeah.
As in, to me, it wasn't credible, because often you get these when there's like these superhumans, you think, yeah, they can do these amazing, incredible things, and there's a reason for that. But then the whole point of it is like these Red Widows are not they're not soldiers. Superhuman. They haven't been given this magic serum. These are just like highly trained individuals. But even a highly trained individual is not bulletproof. They can't defy gravity. They can't.
That's it. Can't fall like 5,000 things and hit everything on the way down and then get up and fight. It's just, yeah.
And they get up and walk away with that. So yeah. I described it to my friend who asked me. I said, as an action film, you describe it as sort of adequate. Yep. Because there's high kicking, there's car chases, there's fighting, there's girls running around in tight leather clothes if that's your bag, and there's a bad guy that you want to hiss when he comes on screen. But it's adequate as an action film. But as part of the canon of Marvel, I thought it was basically quite lacking. And to me, it didn't add anything. I didn't feel like I was any more closer to understanding her motivation or understanding anything more about Black Widow at the end of this film than I did before it, really. I didn't feel I was any closer to her. And I didn't feel, because we know how...
Well, yeah, essentially...
how her story ends.
In case we're trying to be kind to anybody who has avoided watching Avengers Endgame, but this is pretty much going to be the last film that we should be seeing Scarlett Johansson in as Natasha Romanoff. So it's kind of like a goodbye to the character, unless of course there's some stuff happening in the TV show Loki that might mess that whole thing up. But
okay.
So how many stars would you guys give it?
I'd give it a kind 3. And I would have to agree. I'd give it a 3, because, but it just it wasn't. But for me, it's a low 3. But you explained that much better than me, Sharon. Exactly right. It's not part of the Marvel canon.
Well, this is the thing I always worried about with this film. And I think I mentioned this last week, so I won't go too much over it again. I was just like, why is this film here? and it seems like there were just a lot of people who wanted to see it, whether it was a good idea or not. And I wasn't sure that there was a good storytelling reason for the film to exist. But anyway, let us carry on. And Shaun, you want to tell us you were sounding really happy about The Thing from Another World.
Oh,
and the fact that you wanted to catch this. So talk to us about The Thing from Another World. That is a title that even if you haven't seen the film, you might be aware of.
Yeah. So this film, it's an old black and white film, which obviously we know about John Carpenter's Thing. So anyway, this film, I mean, I saw it years ago, and I seem to remember I really enjoyed it. But I'd forgotten actually how absolutely brilliant. This movie is. It is absolutely first class, because you know how I like plots to be right, and that it's fully explained. It's like, so they say about, oh, we've only got the fuel to go this far. Oh, there's this front coming in, so we need to. Everything is just like explained, and it's like, oh, you need to make sure, just save the thing, and then people are getting killed, and they get a message say, we're not going to get there, protect all human life, and it just works so well. And so basically, I better tell you the story, I suppose.
Yeah, what I was going to ask you, so this was remade by John Carpenter as the Thing. The Kurt Russell movie, and we know that that's like people at some polar science outpost where this alien comes in and starts mimicking people and picking them off one by one. So it's kind of like a sci-fi horror movie. How similar is the Thing from another world to the Thing?
The Thing, well, the sets are almost identical. You've got the dogs, things in it. Yeah, the sets. Because I was looking, I thought, and what would be really, really good was to see this as a double bill, to see the Thing from another world and then the Thing, because even the titles are the same, where it goes, and like the Thing appears, and it's like, I know, although the titles are black and white, so I was like really, really excited. They've got the outhouses that look exactly the same. They've got the running boards. They've got, and the bit where, with the dogs, when the dogs get killed, it doesn't get taken over like it does in the Alien, but it gets killed, and then they find this blood and they grow the things, and it's like, and the mad scientist bit. But it's just, so it is, you can understand why John Carpenter must have wanted to make the Thing, because it's exactly that. This thing in the eyes basically starts off, they get this aircraft, so it's a bunch of aircraft people, and they fly out. They say, well, this thing's landed. We've got lots of magnetic fields coming in on that. Can you go there? So they go to the base, and then they say, oh, we'll go out to the crash site. And they find this block of ice with something inside. So they take that back. They leave someone to look after it. Obviously, the ice melts, and this thing, whatever it is, gets away, and then you've got a lot of tension and things. So, I mean, it's just absolute. But I can't say enough about this, really.
Okay, so what is it? Is it because everything is? It seems to me like it's an old black and white movie. Do you know what year it was made?
1950, something like that.
54. So for me, I'm thinking that the what would make this film would be the claustrophobia, the sort of like tension and all that, and just sort of sustained tension throughout the run. Is that what makes this film so good?
Yeah, So there's a lot of tension in it, and you've just got you've got all the characters. You've got the super, like, the pilot who's like the hero. Oh yeah, and I was going to say as well. Now, Assault on Precinct 13, right?
Yep.
In Assault on Precinct 13, the girls wear this roll neck jumper with a belt round. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's obviously this girl at the base, and she is wearing exactly the same. And I'm like, it's black and white, so it's black and white. But the roll neck, the polo neck shirt with the thing, I thought, John Carpenter, you've taken the girls, and that's because do you remember? Toast?
Yeah.
Remember the girls have got the roll necks, the polo necks with roll necks with the
sort of turtleneck woolen jumper. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's exactly, and they look identical to like how Laurie Zimmer and the other one are in Assault on Precinct 13. So it must have had a huge impact on John Carpenter. Yeah. And as I say, the thing that really did it for me, all right, the effects. I mean, it's a man in a suit, obviously, but it's just that everything is so well explained. Why they do stuff. This is the reason why. This is what's going to happen. This is what we need to do. This is, okay, you go over there, you do this, and it's all like worked out well. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I would do if I was in a situation like this, and this thing had escaped and it had killed some dogs and these things were growing. This is exactly what you do. You try and contain it, so you'd sort of lock it in a place, and then you try and get the way that they're going to. The only way they can, obviously, that they work out what can destroy it, because obviously bullets don't kill it. Bullets won't kill it, so they have to work out. Yeah.
I have to admit, I am a fan of when there were restrictions, like there wasn't CGI, there wasn't anything like that. So what you had to focus on was story.
Story, yeah, exactly.
And I think it's there are some, like, I know even Steven Spielberg, he said that when he directed Jaws, he said that he was actually really, really thankful for the restrictions that he had, the fact that he didn't have CGI then, and the fact that the shark didn't work. Because when the shark didn't work, it forced him to have to be inventive with all these different ways. And he was like, "Yeah, I was a 20-something-year-old filmmaker. If I had CGI, that shark would have been all over the place. It would have ruined the film." And he thinks that, and I think in the 50s, when they didn't have that much, they had all these fantastical ideas, and because they didn't have stuff to make them look believable on screen, they had to focus on the story. And that's probably a simplistic and horribly rose-tinted romantic way of looking at things, but I'm a fan of that. So, Shaun, if I dare ask, how many stars would you give The Thing from Another World?
Wow, I mean, to me, it's a perfect film. To me, it's a perfect. I'd forgotten how perfect it is. So, being as it's a perfect film, I'm going to have to give this one a 5, and it's going to be right up there in my big films. And as I say, this is a second view, and I saw it years ago, and I remember it had an impression, but I just actually didn't realise quite how good it was. And the thing was, what was really funny as well, I mentioned this to a chap at work, and he goes, "I watched that. I was in bed, and I was having a look to see what was on, and I thought, oh, I watched that." He said, "Oh, it's good, wasn't it?" So, yeah.
All right, good stuff. So I'll have to go dig that out on BBC iPlayer. So now we're going to go back to cinema. So, Netflix and Friends and its archive, and punching above the weight today. So, okay. So we go back to cinema, and this is a film called Freaky. And it's a film, this is the only film that I saw this week. This stars Vince Vaughn as the Blissfield Butcher and Catherine Newton as a young teenage girl. And and that's pretty much her character description, young teenage girl, because this is one of those slasher movies. It's one of those slasher movies that kicks off, and it kicks off with people. You have 4 teens who are all in a house, a big mansion, at night by themselves. Guess what's going to happen? Telling stories about the Blissfield Butcher, and people going, "Oh, that isn't really real. There's no real thing. Yeah, it's just a urban myth people made up." But he comes out every night, or he comes around every year around homecoming, and guess what's around the corner? Homecoming, and all that. And obviously, once you have this film doesn't try and hide what it is. It's a slasher movie. It's a slasher movie that has, you have 4 young teens. There's all the hallmarks that, okay, they're going to get picked up one by one. 2 of them have sex. And I think the film starts off quite brutally, because the kills are quite brutal and quite graphic in what actually happens in them. And it's one of these things that makes me realize I'm growing older, because I was watching it going, is this necessary? I'm not a fan of slasher movies at the best of times, but the way they go through this, I'm like, why? Because in slasher movies, from what I understand, the kills are a big thing. They're like a stunt, and people go, "Oh, the kills were really, really good." And I think there's something a bit perverse about that what you're really looking for is the kills. Let's see how they're going to kill people. Oh, that kill wasn't good enough. It wasn't inventive enough. And I'm thinking that there's something wrong with that. So these kills happen, but then you get to the real meat of the film, which is that when he kills these teenagers, he picks up a knife and he tries to kill another teenager who is played by Catherine Newton, but something goes wrong, and because of story reasons, they swap bodies, and then the film becomes like a horror comedy thing where you have a serial killer running around in the body of a 17-year-old girl, and Vince Vaughn, who's this 6 foot hulk of a serial killer. But there's a teenage girl within Vince Vaughn's body. So it's Vince Vaughn running around for the film, acting like a teenage girl, trying to get his body back. And everybody looking, going, "Oh my God, it's the Butcher!" and all that kind of stuff that's happening. And that's essentially the central premise. That's the one joke of the film that they stretch out over an hour and a half. Shaun, what did you think?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think the slashery bits, and also the bits in the middle, the other kills, which are like a bit extreme, I think were put in there to, I don't know, to make the film what it was, because they were a little bit overdone, weren't they? They were a little bit.
I thought they were unnecessarily
overdone.
There were some characters that they show up and they give you like, "Oh, this teacher in this class, he's played by Alan Ruck. He was mean to her. Guess what's going to happen to him? Yeah, he was mean, and therefore it's justifiable that this happens to him. And, oh my God, it's gruesome." It's like, this teenager is a high school jock and is really, really misogynistic. Guess what's going to happen to him?
I must admit, I did quite enjoy the running that Vince Vaughn did when he was running along. That was he did that really, really well. Because I didn't realise how big a bloke he was.
Yeah,
I mean,
Vince
I know
Vaughn
there
is
was a
huge.
film right into he's huge, isn't he?
He is huge.
He's
Vince
a
Vaughn
monster.
is huge.
But yeah, so yeah, I thought that part of it was quite good.
I think
not trippily good, but it was just the way he was like, ooh,
there's some really subversive bits. There's some really subversive bits, like where you have Vince Vaughn, who is in this film looks like like a Michael Myers type of person or like a Freddy Krueger type person. There's bits of him like when he runs like well, like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And there's bits where he has to try and convince her friends that it's him, and he does this whole dance thing where he's shaking his bum and all that. And there are bits of it that are quite. There's a bit where, because obviously it's a slasher movie, but at the same time it's a teenage sort of slash type of rom-com, and there's a guy who she kind of likes, and she never gets to tell the guy that she actually likes him until she's in Vince Vaughn's body. And so you have quite a funny scene in the back of a car with this guy saying that he likes the girl as well, only that it's Vince Vaughn acting opposite a teenage boy, and it's quite the way they play it. It's quite a funny scene because it plays with your expectations of what you want. So there are funny bits in it. There's just
And I think the teenager played.
Yeah, Catherine Newton.
Yeah, she played it quite well. It was like quite clever, calculated, especially when it came to the places where she needed to play the teenage innocent. So
yes,
I thought she did look quite menacing as well. Reminded me of Terminator 3. I don't know with the.
Oh yeah.
With some of the movement.
I see that with it. So I think there's bits in it where it's quite funny. There's the bits where it's brutal. I think it's oh good lord, it's brutal. And all in all, I think it's quite fun. It kind of knows it only has one joke. The film knows it only has one, and so it doesn't try and stretch it out. I think it's probably about 90 minutes at most, the length of the film. So I would give it a 3, but I think some of that might be me growing a bit older and going, oh, why you have to kill them? Why? And also, hang on a second, you kill all these people and nobody seems to care. Like once it gets into the high school bit of the film, nobody mentions the fact that we found somebody sawn in half. Yeah. Nobody mentions the fact that we found somebody who has been frozen. And by the way, why did they have that in the school? Yeah. Like a cryo chamber that can freeze, that can go to minus 300 degrees. And so if somebody falls out of it and breaks into pieces, why is that in a school? And also the whole idea that, oh, this person is a mean girl, therefore she deserves to die. This person, he deserves to die. I'm like, I'm not sure what you're saying here. So I will probably give it a 3. I don't know about you, Shaun.
I think I'd probably agree with you on that, Toes. It wasn't, it had moments, kept me entertained to a degree, but yeah, no, I'm totally with you all the way on that. That's a 3-star.
Yep, cool, good stuff. Okay, I just one final thing on Freaky. I think I put my finger on what it is that was bothering me about Freaky, is that you have on one hand, there's things in it you're supposed to laugh at. There's definitely things you're supposed to laugh at in the film, and there's things in it that are funny. But the other hand, you have these extremely brutal murders that happen. And it's almost as if it's, for me, the shift between horrible, graphic, brutal, almost glorifyingly brutal thing that we've witnessed, and then you're supposed to laugh. It's too much of a gear change. It's almost as if you're supposed to laugh at the way these people are getting killed. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I cannot do that. What you've just done with that wine bottle, there's no way I'm laughing at it. What you've just done with that toilet seat with that girl's head, no way I'm laughing at it. But anyway, moving on. So let's move back to Netflix and Friends. And Sharon, you have The Tomorrow War for us. So you just want to tell us a little bit about The Tomorrow War.
Yeah, this is a film that's been promoted quite heavily. I've seen it on Facebook a lot, and it's popped up on my sort of banner film on Amazon Prime. It's basically a Chris Pratt film where it's set in the future, the near future, apparently. But obviously they hadn't foreseen COVID because it's not mentioned anywhere. But it's in the future, and this Chris Pratt plays a character who had been a Marine and in the army, but he's now left the army and he used his soldier's grant, or whatever they call it in America. I'm sorry for our America viewer listeners. and to go and pay himself through university, and he's now a teacher in a high school. And then during the World Cup final, I know there's a certain irony in that, whilst the whole world is watching, this strange event happens, and basically people from the future appear in the middle of the football pitch, and all the players are left running, screaming. And they say, in the future, humanity is going to be near wiped out. We are down to our last 500,000 people on the whole planet. That we are fighting an alien invader, and we need your help. We have found a way of transporting between the 2 points in time, these 2 fixed points in time, this year and this future year in 30 years' time. And we need your soldiers to come and help us fight. And basically, that's what people do. And there's certain qualifications for going through into the future. I won't tell you here because that's a little bit of a spoiler, but there are certain qualifications for you. And if you do qualify, then you can be drafted, and you get fitted with like a cuff that basically will track your every movement, and it tracks your biorhythms and everything going on about you. But if you try to take it off or try to escape, then they're all penalties. And so basically no one in the world is exempt from this potential draft. The whole world is united in helping our future selves. And Chris Pratt is one of these people who ends up being drafted. And you see him in his life before he goes through, and then you see him as he is sucked through in this sort of time thing into the future to fight these alien invaders, which he does.
All right, cool. So far, so kind of Full Metal Jacket with sci-fi twist. Any good?
There are some good moments in it. I have to say, I did a bit of the old Shaun when I was watching this one, and there are certain key elements where they just happen to introduce certain elements, like someone's really interested in developing viruses from a young age. They're like, hey, I'm going to develop viruses. Oh, I just might happen to need that later on in the film. And then someone has got this passionate hobby where my interest just happens to be this thing. And it's like later on in the film, you know, that thing is really handy right now. And so all the way through the beginning, you get like, they keep dropping these like breadcrumbs that later on the sort of crows from the future come back and pick up. And like, oh, it just happens. I'm glad you left that here because I'm going to need that. And it happened about 3 or 4 times where you're thinking, now that's handy, isn't it? That you just happen to know someone who can do all those things that you need. And so I got to the point halfway through the film thinking, I'm turning into Shaun.
It's contagious. It is contagious.
There are certain elements. It was entertaining. I mean, the creatures were done quite well. The fighting was done quite well. And then they sort of don't do a twist at the end, but they do like a, where you think this is the end of the film, then they go, ha ha, fooled you. We're going to keep going. And then the story's going to go on for another half an hour. And so they have some elements in it that were good, but some of it I was thinking...
And let me guess, this sounds to me like this is going to be one of those films that ends in sequel bait.
It's possible.
Okay,
possible.
All right. Okay, cool. They don't make it obvious then. Okay, that's good. I'll accept that.
I think, Sharon, you explained that brilliantly. I was mesmerised by that sort of analogy of like, well, you know, it's just about convenience thing. It was a bit like we spoke the other week about The Quiet Place, you know, about just
Quiet
was
Place
lucky.
2.
A Quiet Place too. It was just lucky that, you know, someone happened to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That particular bit of sign language.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's that's a shame, really, I think, when it comes to that. But it sounds like the action was quite good from what you were saying.
Yes, I mean, they did they had elements of, because I quite liked it, Invasion Los Angeles. They had elements of that because they're fighting through like real scenery and through scenes, and you suddenly get this. But some of the story just did not make sense to me at all, I have to say. Except for the whole bit about bringing people from the past to take them into the future to fight. And then before you see them go, they have like no training. They're like, you have to go for 7 days and you've got to go like tomorrow. And you think, and they get basically the most basic, like this is how you load a gun, this is how you fire a gun. And that's it. And then they say, you know what, only sort of 3 out of 10 people come back. It's like, no kidding. They're cannon fodder. Why would you do that? Why would you throw away tens of thousands of lives and they said, oh, we don't train you because there's no point. Well, if there's no point, why send them?
Why you take? Yeah.
Die.
To basically, what you just said, that it makes me think like, it's going to end up in a Soylent Green kind of way. It's people.
Yeah. So some of it, I was thinking, well, if you know that there's no point, you can't fight these aliens in the conventional.
Well, surely,
why are you throwing thousands of troop at them in the same old conventional way?
Couldn't you just go back? Couldn't you get something? Go back if you got time travel. Couldn't you just go back to just before the aliens arrived and get it all ready so when they land?
Sean, even in what Sharon said, I heard how they have gotten themselves out of that, because there are these two fixed points that we can travel back and forth between.
Oh right,
so
okay. That's
whatever
lucky.
point in the future they come from, and the World Cup final. I see it. They've already gone. Okay, cool.
Right, I missed that one.
They've gone. People like you, Sean, who are going to come in. Oh, you smart Alex. No, that's off the table. Now,
I did say you have to watch half an hour of the film, Sean, and you probably could write the rest of it.
Right, okay, cool, thanks.
So the very end, I thought was quite interesting. I thought, no, they've done that not too badly. But again, I thought in some ways it made no sense. It was predictable and it was very convenient. But saying that, it wasn't a hideous ordeal of a film. I mean, they did it okay.
All right. So how many stars would you give this film?
I would give it a 3 then, basically. It was our favourite rating. I mean, if you go by the 1, it sucks. 2, it's okay. 3, it's good. 4, I really liked it. 5, I thought it was amazing. If you do that, I'd probably go, it was like a 2/3 because I liked it and it was okay and I sort of liked it. So I would say it qualifies as a 3.
As an okay film, a bit like our Black Widows, I guess.
Yeah, but I would say there's enough about it to go, oh, for goodness sake.
Okay, so if we're gonna go proper Netflix cinema style, if you said Black Widow or The Tomorrow War, which one would you take?
For being more entertaining, I'd probably go Tomorrow War.
Oh, good lord! Oh, that's bad. Okay, because the Tomorrow War. It sounds like everything I heard about it. It made me think this runs a massive risk of being incredibly generic.
It will be forgotten completely within a couple of years.
Yeah,
it'll be one of those science fiction films that will appear on a television channel in 50 years' time. But they made this sort of thing 50 years ago.
Well, the thing is
completely forgotten.
Well, the thing is, you say a couple of years, but I think now with the rate at which they're churning things out on streaming platforms, it's going to be forgotten in a week.
It'll be gone. But I think it will be one of those ones that's like entertaining, but it's completely forgettable. Yeah, give it a little bit of time and we will forget it even happened.
All right, cool. Okay, and so that's it. We have a 2 from cinema, we have a 2 from Netflix, and now we have a bonus one from Netflix and Friends, which I'm going to bring in. This is the film I said. It's called I'm Your Woman, and I think, Sean, you like this, but let me tell you why I think you like this. So this film stars Rachel Brosnahan, who, if anybody knows, there's a show called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is on Amazon Prime, and she is the star of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I rate her highly. I think she's a brilliant actress. So Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is set in the 50s going into the 60s, and this film, I'm Your Woman, goes into Sean's favorite decade, the 70s.
Oh, the 1970s. Wow.
So I would like you to think about your best crime movie in the 70s, a crime movie that you like. You know what it's like, a guy goes off and he does a job and then something goes wrong and then he has to go on a run, and then the whole criminal thing starts falling down on him and it becomes like the error of your ways of being a criminal, all that kind of stuff. Now imagine that film, but imagine that the gangster in those films always had a woman at home that just sort of like was kind of scenery almost. But imagine they had that film, candy. But the entire film you stayed with a woman.
Oh wow!
And that's essentially what I'm Your Woman is. So it starts off with her, and she sat at home, and she's sort of dressed up all kind of like glamour puss. That's the word I'm looking for. She's just like sort of glamour puss, and she has the fact that she stays with Eddie, and she talks about the fact that they met, they got married, they tried to have kids, they couldn't have kids, and then one day Eddie shows up with a kid, and she's like, "Who's that? Who's that baby?" He's like, "That's our child," and she's like, "But." What do you mean? He's like, this is your child. You're going to take care of it because they can have babies. They've had a couple of miscarriages, and Eddie just gives her this. And so there's all these things that get dropped that make you think this Eddie guy might be a little bit dodgy. and then one day he leaves the home and he's like, don't worry, I'll be back later as usual. and she gets woken up in the middle of the night by one of Eddie's friends, who just sort of says, you've got to go now. Goes to the cupboard, brings out a bag, shoves a whole bunch of money, like just sort of like paper money into this bag, gives it to her, says, take the kid, and takes it outside, introduces her to this guy called Cal, says, this is Cal, go with him, do what he tells you. It's like, what about Eddie? Don't worry about Eddie right now. Go with him, do what he tells you. And so throughout this film, you're following her. She's being moved around, and because she's never really done anything for herself, they have the whole thing like she can't cook properly, she can't look herself properly, she can barely drive because Eddie never let her drive, and so you have her kind of go, what the hell's going on? And you have the idea that this other film that would usually be made in the 70s is happening somewhere in the background while she's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. She's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So I think as to how authentic the costumes are, or the driving is, or the anything like that, or the cars are, Shaun, you're gonna have to watch it and you're gonna have to tell me, because it's to me it looks very authentically 70s. And there's bits where they bring other characters in, and you start realizing, okay, there's a past that her husband had that she never really knew about and she never really asked about, and her husband's past sort of intersects with where she is right, and where she's trying to find out what happened. And so I don't want to tell you much because it becomes a bit of a mystery where she's trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but being done by an inept detective who has never really had to do anything for herself before in the past. And so I quite liked it. I really liked it. There were, I think the performances are brilliant from Rachel Brosnahan and Arinze Kene, who plays Cal. I think and then there's other characters who show up later. There's some shootouts. There's scenes in it. There's one scene that I was trying to figure out, is that one of those convenient things, or would that actually happen? And it all goes around how useless people thought women were in the 70s. Like, if somebody thinks that a woman is really, really useless, will he let his guard down that much because he thinks she's no threat? And I've decided to allow it. But Shaun, if you can see I'm Your Woman, I would love to see what you think about it, because I think the 70s setting, the fact it is, and the fact that it tells pretty much a crime gone wrong story, but from a perspective that we haven't really seen before. It has some similarities to something like Widows, only that this person is a lot less competent than the women in Widows.
Yeah. I think gangsters' moles generally are quite dizzy, aren't they?
This is essentially what she is. She's kind of like, the whole thing is like, oh, I know Eddie does some things that maybe they might not be that good or anything like that, but I never ask, so I don't really know where we get all these nice things from. That's the way she starts off at the beginning of the film, and there is a reading of the film that is all about her, coming up and grabbing her independence, and I don't think that is in the background. If at all, it's in the background.
Yeah.
It's a lot more about almost sort of survival in this crazy situation that she finds in. I thought it was really good. I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So that is 4 stars for Rachel Brosnahan and I'm Your Woman. Should we bother asking who won this week?
I think we probably know, don't we?
yes, we know. Cinema's back, and Cinema's giving us some nice, good, it's all right 3s, but we are finding some gems. We're finding some gems, it seems, on at home. I mean, and this is one of the things that I think when we think about Netflix as cinema, because Netflix can just go shove in a classic that maybe you've never seen. Like, for instance, you're talking about John Carpenter. I have a raft of things to talk about on Netflix that I have seen. I saw They Live for the first time last week.
Oh, right. Okay. That's interesting. I'd love to know what you think about that.
Yeah. Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I saw They Live for the first time. And obviously with those, I think that there's a better chance of finding something good on Netflix than there is on cinema. But I think we shall continue with our thing, because we shall continue with our central premise, because it keeps us watching movies.
That's it. And I think we are going to be in for some decent stuff. I hope so. We got loads, haven't we? We got June.
Yep.
I think it's beginning to pick up now, isn't it? At the cinema, definitely. I've noticed the screens are. I have got different films on in them, rather than one film that's on 4 different screens.
But they are bringing some classics back. I mean, I think Casablanca was in my local cinema recently. I think there's There was another one. I can't remember where it was. I know Jurassic Park came back, and but never mind.
I
But
actually
anyway,
do like those ones. Films you never saw at the cinema potentially. It's like it's nice. My when Medina Theatre, which is a local theatre on the island, between the gap when our old cinema closed and they built Cineworld, there was the only cinema on the island was at Medina Theatre, and they did a film show once a week, and they used to show classic films. I went to see things like West Side Story there because you'd never seen them at the cinema. And so it was great. I loved it. So yeah, it'd be nice to see some of those films. You know, on big
the thing is, I would love to see those. However, I have one film a week to see. So, and so as much as I'm like, oh, we're still going to see that on the big screen, I'm like, no, I'm going to watch something new.
On Thursday the 29th, there is. I know it's a special thing, but at the cinema they've got the Sparks movie about the band.
Oh
Sparks.
yeah, the band by Edgar Wright.
So that Thursday will probably be So Edgar Wright, Baby Driver, you know and I mean I love Sparks anyway. They're terrific, but you have got to pay an extra £10 even though you got an unlimited card. So it's a special one. I know that's harsh, isn't it? But so chances are I probably will. Pardon?
I think it's harsh, but then again I'm tight.
Yeah. So.
That's
chances are I'll probably be the only one in there.
Okay. All right, cool. But anyway, until next week when we will see some things and we will come and tell you about them. It's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Oh, and also by then we will know exactly why the country's getting drunk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, by this time next week, we will know why the country's getting drunk. All right, cool. Okay. Goodbye.
It's all right.